everybody. This is the podcast number 3, and as you know, today we are talking English because we have international guest here, Luis Anula, and I would like to hand over to Luis. Luis, tell me and us a little bit about you and who are you and where you're coming from.
Hi everyone. First of all, thanks for the invitation. Such a pleasure to break the routines nowadays and be here speaking about football. And well, basically, I had been involved in Finnish football the last 3 years, working as a fitness coach in KuPS. And nowadays I make a move and I'm working in Russia, in Zenit, St. Petersburg.
Sounds good. And then we have Toni, Tammi, also from KuPS. If you, Toni, say a few words about you, and then we can open first question.
Yes, hello everybody. So I'm in Luis's last club KuPS, and I'm working with the 2012-year-olds, and also responsible or trying to make an impact in how we train children in KuPS, how we use a lot of more movement skills and more coordination stuff and motor skills in our education here. But first of all, I really like to thank Luis for coming here, because I think people in Finnish football don't know how what was Luis's impact in our championship winning team last year. Because I was watching tens of trainings, like 20 or something, and I saw how Luis brought this new approach to KuPS about how to approach like physical training and how to approach physical training with the ball. And I'm not just saying this because I know I share lots of people's opinion that Luis was really important part and under-evaluated part of our championship winning team. So I'm really excited. So I think this is the highlight of this day. I have like friend Luis and Petteri here talking with me about football, and we can just dig in deep about football. But I'm not here just to appreciate Luis for everything he done here. I just like to go and talking about football in general. And first, I would like to Luis to share something about what did he learn about football, because he came from Spain and Portugal, this environment, to Lekirus Vantaa and then to KuPS. That what did he learn during his Finnish years? I think, did you stay here for like 4 or 5 years in Finland? And now you can answer. Did you hear?
Ihan kun Luis puhuisi, toi liikkuu toi. Luis, did you lose your voice from the Skype line?
Okay.
Okei, ääni kuuluu.
Do you listen me now?
Now it's perfect.
Okay. I don't know. I feel that sometimes this is losing my voice, so let me know, okay?
Yes.
But I answered Tony's question, right?
Yes.
Great. So, well, when I arrived Finland, I was pretty young. I was 24th when I first made the move to Legidus Inter. So I had been learning quite a lot in this experience because I'm still learning every day. And it has been very powerful, I think, since I make the move to KuPS and working in a full professional structure has brought a lot of things to my knowledge and a lot of things to my experience that still keep me active today, trying to find answers to new problems that comes up. So Finnish football has gave me many things and the opportunity to use all my time in what I like the most, that is football and coaching.
Yeah. And you saw lots of these our players here in Veikkaus Liiga and in Kuopio, and you saw these young players coming to become top players in the Veikkaus Liiga. And I think one of the issues we wonder around here in Finland is that why is that our top players in the Veikkaus Liiga, for example, have a really hard time when they try to make it in Europe, because that's the ultimate goal for every young player also in Finland. Could you comment about that one? That do you see any difference? What kind of differences you see in our top players than, for example, players in top 15 series in Europe?
Well, I think first of all is changing already, and it's gonna change a little bit more in the future due to the popularity that football is winning nowadays in Finland because of national team and because of players that are making succeed abroad, like Teemu Pukki and Timo Sparf and some others in highest leagues. So I hope this will bring more interest to youth kids and that would like to play football more than years before. But there is, I think, that comes to the structures of the teams in the youth levels, that I think they are not bringing the same amount of tools that another kid in another country with football more developed are bringing to this process, because a 21 years old player in Finland could be totally different from a 21 years old player from abroad. That player from abroad normally has a lot of coaches involved in their development, full professional, full time with them, and that brings a lot of quality to this process. So once they are 20, 21, ready to break through, I think they are a little bit more ready. So when a player of that age moves abroad, they are competing with this disbalance between the realities that sometimes is hard. And I hope this can change in the future, because bring players abroad will elevate much more the level of our league and the Finnish football.
So you think the issue is not in the minor football in the youngest ages, so it's about in the Finnish football around 18 to 22 in that age, the big difference compared to, for example, Spain or Portugal?
Actually, I'm thinking that you can see the difference at that age, but the core of the problem, it's what is happening when the player is being developed. So I would say from 10 to 18 and more, because players are arriving with more readiness to these ages when they are developing themselves abroad than in Finland and this moment.
What do you see would be, if you think about the player abroad that is really talented and will succeed and break through on top leagues, what they are actually doing, what's the right thing to do comprehensively? What should be done during those ages?
Well, there is a huge wall behind that. Actually, I made my final thesis at university speaking about the factors that are important for a player to be successful in the future. And the truth is that there is no single answer for that, but it's such a complex system that first of all starts about the organization and also about what means that sport in your culture. When you mix these two, I think you start to find some solutions. And if popularity of your sport is big in your country, that will move more people around it and more interest around it. So it will perhaps be more professional, the environment. So a player who is developed their sport in a club will be always under coaches who has been studying for being coaches, and they would like to be coaches in the future. And there is not only one, they could be around 3 coaches since they are 9 years old. And also those organizations can bring more services to these players, such as psychological help for them, how to teach them about social skills, and many other things that are part of this sport and the probability to succeed.
Okay. And you are working now in Zenit, and you are taking the academy team, fitness coaching there, and your players are like around 20, 22. And how do you see that your team would make it in Veikkaus liiga if they would come and play Veikkaus liiga here in general?
Well, that would be such a nice experiment, because the reality of this team is the reality of a team with players about 17 to 21 years old. Of course, we have few exceptions, and those players are not that ready as you can find in maybe the top teams in Veikkaus liiga. So I think it would be a team that it will propose things that are different what others are proposing in the pitch, such as aggressiveness in the way of play, and this talent that some youth players has about trying new things. That would be fun to see. But I think the reality is far from that, because we are involved in a project where we are trying to get players ready for the professionals team. First of all, our team in Zenit, and if they are not making it there, try to make a move to another first division team in Russia. So they are not that ready. They are committing more mistakes than some other players in Veikkaus liiga because they have less experience. But that's also the only way to get better. But it will be maybe perhaps fun experiment.
Yeah. And if you look at the physical aspect of your players, of course, they are not so ready as Veikkaus liiga players. But do you see any, because you have been doing lots of fitness coaching here in KuPS also, so do you see differences between, for example, like young Russian player that is coming to Zenit Academy, or if you compare that to young KuPS player or young HAK player here?
Well, I need to say that every player that is at this moment in our squad has been quite along in Zenit Academy. So that means they had been under very strict and severe training process. And the athletes in Russia, they are tough. I mean, they can train. They take perhaps, I think, 2 times more amount of training that a regular Finnish player can take in his development. So physically, they are a little bit more made, and of course, they are a little bit more ready to be under more intense training process. And that doesn't mean the quality is higher or lower, is that they are simply a little bit more ready than Finnish players. But what I have found in Finland is that the disposition for a player to work and get better is huge. They appreciate people that can help them, and they will actually do whatever is in their hands to get better. So that's a thing that I appreciate pretty much, and I'm very happy about being working with all of the players that I have working in KuPS.
One question, now you have been in Zenit, the younger players also under 17, are they already living the professional living, so to say, that everything is integrated around Zenit, school, food, living, sleeping, everything, or how are they living? Are they living at home and just going to training? So is everything integrated?
Let's speak about the team that is under us, that is the under 19s. Those players, as far as I know, they are full professionals too, and they live for the football. So that means, for example, we had been from January to middle of March having training camps abroad, and the under 19s, they had been also under the same environment. That means they are not going to the school, and I think almost all of them, they are going to this sports school that Zenit is providing, or someone collaborating with Zenit is providing to those athletes. And players who are not from St. Petersburg, they are living in the residence of the club, and this residence is in the academy facilities. So at the end, they are spending 24 hours, 7 days a week in the same environment.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty much what I thought. Yeah. One question came to my mind during the very early on this interview. It's about the physical skill and fitness training. How would you describe, if we divide 10 to 18 and then a little bit older, as your team is now, how young players should be and start very organized, structural physical training? How do you see? And if yes, then what it should be, how it looks like?
I think there is no such a division between physical and rest of parts around football, or there shouldn't be, not in youth and not in pro level. But I think the physical side of a youth, it would be more into how you can develop skills related with movement. When he's young, you want to create such a lot of variety in the movement. You don't want them to be football specific, perhaps, because it's important that their mind is able to learn many different things at those ages. And as soon as they are getting to this teenager stage, 14 years old more or less, I think is when you can start giving some specific stimulus to their training, such as strength or such another capacities. But the most important, in my opinion, is that the player is able to experience different environment when he's at early age. There is many pathways to get into sport specialization. Some of the pathways speaks about being under early specialization since you are young. That means play only the same sport during the maximum amount of times. There is some that tells the opposite, that says it's better to play many different sports, and at the end of your teenage stage you make the specialization choosing just one. And there is another that try to mix both, and I think that's the best, in my opinion, where you can stimulate differently the athlete when he's young, and then finally try to move him to a specialization, in this case football.
very good. In the early, when we started, there was a lot of talk about this, your KuPS times, and Toni mentioned that a lot of things changed. Can we go a little bit back on time and discuss? Can you describe what was the thing that KuPS start doing differently, and what's the role of that changed, and what came out of it? Of course, we know the championship came out of it, but if we go deeper, what were the changes that you saw in the team?
Well, I think it's such a big project thing, as you say, that is difficult to describe it. But first of all, what we brought when we all arrived to KuPS is more people in the coaching staff. Honsu had a really nice eye on it, and he saw that KuPS was needed more professionals around the player, so we can give better solutions to them. And that has brought a lot of quality to the training process, because it's not only one person doing everything. You can be more focused in what is your specialization and makes a little bit better that part of the process. So the first thing we brought, I think, is structure to the training process. In my case, I tried to give structure to those routines players should do daily to take care of themselves and to be able to provide good performance inside the pitch. And then we try to make the training process, I mean, what is happening inside the pitch, more specific and more football related, and having some guidelines and justification why we do certain things and when we do certain things and what we do certain things. So that's little more or less the summary of it.
And I think, like I mentioned before, one of the biggest things for outsider like me was that you brought the ball to the physical training and to the trainings.
Yes, I think that's when I was telling before that football cannot be separated with different capacities or aspects. I think that's one of the biggest thing of our methodology, that whatever you do, it should be football related. And when we are inside the pitch, in my opinion, it should be always related with football, because player will spend 90 minutes maximum a day inside the pitch, and you have around 10 hours more during the day to work on things that could help the player to perform better in the pitch. But you don't need to do those things inside the pitch, because 90 minutes is all about football since the warm-up until the end of the training. So actually some people who has came to visit our trainings has also asked, you don't do like physical things in the trainings, and not in the football trainings. We do it in the pitch, but maybe at different time that is not when team is training. We can do individual training in one day off or after one team training practice, but not when the team is training.
Now, one concrete example of this is that I heard that you didn't, the players didn't do any running between the lines, which is really a popular movement of training here in Finland, that we run between lines without the ball. So that you didn't do at all in the whole year.
No, well, one important fact of our physical progression during the season is our pre-seasons, and our pre-seasons were a little bit weird in the 3 years I had been working with Honsu, because our training environment was not the greatest. We needed to train in Kuopio-Halli, and the surface at Kuopio-Halli and also the space we were having, it was not good enough to stress players in this early stage of the season. So normally when you see teams doing this non-specific activities is during the pre-season, and I don't like to do those, but I'd like less if we are having this environment to train. So it's much more valuable to include this kind of goals you are having through these linear runs, as you are calling, inside football games. And you can do it. You can stress every single capacity that a player needs through football games. You just need to know a lot about how to create proper drills and how to orientate those drills to the goals you want to pursue.
Yeah, beautiful. And what about now? How do you see your everyday life now here in St. Petersburg compared to this your everyday life here in KuPS? Is it your work days about the same, or are there any differences between your work days? You can try to describe your typical training session or typical training day.
So, well, because of the situation we are facing at the moment in the whole world, I haven't had time to be working in what is going to be my normal environment, because during these 3 months that I had been working for Zenit, we had been in training camps abroad, because the weather in St. Petersburg is pretty similar as in Finland. So the club always send their teams to train abroad. And when you are inside a training camp, the training is very demanding. I think a normal, typical day, it was wake up about 7:30. I think 8 o'clock we were having breakfast. After that, players were having a little bit of free or preparation time. And at 9 o'clock, we will start training in the gym, different kind of goals depending the day. And at 10 o'clock, that practice will be done and players will be going to the training ground. And there we will have the first football training practice from 10:30 to 12. Then they will get ready for lunch and have a big resting time until 4. And from 5 o'clock to 6:30, we will have second football training. Then the players will have some recovery strategies, such as time with a physiotherapist or massagers and spa. And after that, we will get dinner. And after the dinner, we normally do meetings with the players. Could be with the whole squad doing some tactical reviews, or could be also in small groups giving some tactical lessons to the players. So more or less that was the structure during the day, and it's periods of 2 weeks that we are abroad, and then we have almost a week off in between. So believe me, those 2 weeks are super demanding for your mind and for your body.
Yeah, I can imagine. And what about now in your everyday Corona life there? Do you have any obligations? Do you do some kind of practice with the small groups, or how do you approach it in Zenit?
Well, this whole thing exploded when we were in Turkey having our last training camp, and it got that bad that the club told us to stop the camp and get back to St. Petersburg. So since that day, and that day was 18th of March, we had been under quarantine in home. First of all, because you need to be 2 weeks mandatorily if you come from a trip in home, and because the last day of that quarantine, it started in Russia a lockdown that is not as strict as could be, for example, in my home country in Spain. At the beginning, people were allowed to walk around their neighborhoods, but they were asking to stay as much as possible at home. So I think this is our 6th week only being able to be at home, and players are not allowed to do any activity outside of home. So we are, when in my case, I'm providing daily workouts for them that they do once or twice a day. And this is such a difficult period for all of us because nobody has told us how to work under these conditions. This is first time in our lives facing this reality. So it's difficult, and also because when you are fitness coach, you always like to work under a plan, and here there is no plan because we don't have any date to get back to our jobs.
Yes. What about your coaching staff there? You mentioned that you had a few coaches in Kuopio, but what about in Zenit Academy? How many coaches or physios you have around this academy squad and the first team?
Well, only in our team, in Zenit second team, we are about 18 members in the staff. Of course, not all of us, not all of them are coaches, but we have many people around this process, and this perhaps has been the most challenging thing for me to adapt, because when you are working at KuPS, everything is more or less under your control, or you have participation in many different things. But here you are surrounded with such a big group of professionals, so you are a little bit more limited in your responsibilities. So you need to work on that, as well as discuss more things with your colleagues, and know that there is such a strong structure to adjust your job.
Yes. And are there any signs of that in Russia, that you will start playing football or start training again?
At the moment, the league has been postponed until 31 of May, but this is a big interrogation mark, and we don't know anything yet. But the situation in Russia is getting worse and worse every day, so we are waiting for news. And at this moment, any team, not only football, in all these other sports, any team is allowed to do training at the moment, and we are meant to be back on small groups training at middle of May, but the situation is much more worse than when they told about this, so we need to wait and see.
Yeah, okay. So next we rise a little bit above our everyday life and start thinking football. I'm asking you to think football. That how do you yourself approach football? Because you come from so different culture than people here in Scandinavia or in Russia. So how do you approach the game of football, like philosophically?
I think that it's a difficult question, because at the end, when you are working at this level, what you want is to win, and that's how people will measure your job. If you win, whatever you do is great, and if you lose, whatever you do is not great. So at the end, we all want to win, and we just need to find a way that move us to those good results. And well, I like everything that is related with the training process. I'm actually kind of in love with whatever it's around this thing. Try to discover the way to make players better, and also try to find a way to give them the solutions they need to have inside the pitch. But we cannot forget that football is all about players, and we are only here to help them. They are playing the 90 minutes and they are training every day, so we just need to be a help to them. We cannot control them, and maybe find the ways to give best solutions to them is the most beautiful part of this job.
Yeah, and what does football mean to you now, and what did it mean when you were growing up as a child?
Well, football means at the end means everything, because it was what moves you every day and what makes you wake up with an ambition and with something really clear to do. But I won't say only football is more the sport by itself, because since I'm very young, I'm doing many different sports, and I have learned to be a human under the sport values. So I appreciate a lot whatever sport can give you as a person. And nowadays it means basically that, and also the opportunity to feel help in some project or environment you are moving. Is very beautiful to help the players to achieve their goals. It's very beautiful to help coaches to find solutions they cannot find by themselves, or help them to find those. So at the end, is that what moves me. And when I was a kid, I think it was just all the interaction that comes through the sport, being in contact with other people, succeed, fail, learn from your mistakes, improve, get better, many things.
Yeah, I was asking this because in Finland it's we have discussion about this football culture right now in our club, for example. That what does football mean to us? That do we have a football culture, or do we have a sports culture here in Finland? And there are people who are saying that we don't have any culture. And I'm just thinking that we have a culture that is like different than yours, because you have so much tradition and so much this culture in everyday life there around football. And in Finland we have a culture, but it's much more closed and much more modest and much more like developing compared to this Southern Europe football culture.
I agree with you, but this cannot be defined as a good or bad, because what nowadays is also happening in countries such as Spain is that they are removing this fun part about doing sport to the kids, because the environment is super competitive. So perhaps parents and kids only want to see this as a tool to succeed in life. So they are putting a lot of pressure under the kids with can be 8 years old. And the only target when you are 8 years old is to enjoy what you are doing and to learn about the things you are doing, and also develop social skills through the sport, not thinking about if you are going to succeed or not. And at the end, in a country as Spain, in football, I think there is one football player in professional level out of 1 million. So it's stupid to think that you need to put a lot of time, effort, and sacrifice since very early stages, because nobody can give you any guarantee about your succeed. So I like also this kind of freedom that you see in countries as Finland, that people are doing things that they like, and you see kids that they move from one sport to another and nothing happened. And perhaps you can be successful being specializing at late age, as I was telling before.
That's a very interesting topic about the competitiveness. We talk a lot about that in Finland at the moment, but did I understood correctly that your point was that there's a risk to take that competitiveness in the early stages too far, and it have actually negative impact for the player development? Was that what you were saying?
I think yes, because competitiveness is a good tool if you know how to use it. And we are getting wrong this term, and we are converting it in a poison weapon for the kids, that they are losing the beautiness of the sport. I won't speak only about football, because this is happening in many other sports. So for me, it's such a sad happening when you see a father who is putting a lot of pressure and over helping that kid to succeed in something that perhaps you don't know if he likes or not. So at the beginning, you need to understand that the most important is that your kid is being active. After that is enjoying, and after that, many years after that, you will see if that kid is ready to break through or not. But that cannot be a goal since you are very young. I think players should feel this competitiveness when they are at the last stage of their development. Maybe when they are 17, 18, for example, in Spain, I know that teams are putting a lot of thoughts on their athletes and a lot of pressure on them because they are really near to break through. So then is when you need to get ready for the things you are going to face as a professional player, that is pressure every day of your life, but not when you are 9, 8 years old.
Yeah, and I think that in Spain also, I think, I'm not sure, but you can tell that I think there are much more and more scouts in young football's life, because if you play, for example, 8-year tournament, then there are scouts of these bigger teams, and they come talk to you, that come to play our team, or things like that. For example, the same is happening or happened in England, that people are scouting 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds there. I think it's the same happening in Spain also, that the scouts are looking around younger kids.
Yes, it's happening, but the thing that worries me the most is very young kids having agents. This is something that blows my mind every day, and I having friendships in Facebook who want to become my friends, being agents of 13, 12 years old athletes. What is this? This is getting very crazy. I think what they need at those ages is something, but for sure not an agent. And nobody can guarantee you that you will succeed because of having an agent where you are this young and showing some skills. But yes, at the end, talent is talent, and whoever is calling attention from other is going to end up in the best clubs. And previous years, you weren't having scouts, you weren't having this kind of structure organizations to find and recruit players. You were having coaches who goes to see different games. You were having like any kind of connections, and also teams are making trials every year to call players and play for them. So yeah, that football is growing, but it's also growing downwards, and it's making them lose part of the beautiness of this sport at those ages. And that's the thing that worries me, because you can be professional but not destroying the core of these sports.
Yes, you mentioned earlier that there's this right kind of competition. Can you tell how do you see that? What's the healthy way of children to compete with each other?
Well, if you think about our game, they will be competing almost in every single drill inside the training, and they are going to be competing against each other in all the games they play during the season. Doesn't matter what age. This is a game, so since you are willing to be part of it, you are going to be competing. So we don't need to add more competitiveness to this process, because they are going to be competing, we want or we don't. What we need to teach them is how to understand what this competition means and what lose or win means, and what the what is the best they can get out of it.
Yes, I think that's a good definition, because there's this opposite movement here in Finland also, that all gaming and all competition is bad for children, that it will harm them mentally. For example, if they run with each other and try to beat each other with a race, or try to beat each other with a tournament, that it's all competition is wrong. So there's this opposite movement also here in school life and in everyday life, in sports life also.
But you know, if one thing I'm watching in Finland is that young athletes in football, the parents are choosing individual training for them. So perhaps they hire a coach and they would like that coach to be with them 1 hour teaching technical skills, perhaps. And I don't say this is bad. This could be added in any part of the development of a player. But what we don't let the players, the kids play, just play however they want it. Could be alone, could be with some others, could be with their parents, could be with whoever they want. And we don't need to coach them when they are playing. We just need to let them play, and things will happen. So after those things happens is when you can speak with them and try to conduct them, not give them the answer. Try to reflect about the things happen. So perhaps you are telling me that kids could get very competitive between each other, perhaps fight. So maybe we don't need to avoid that fight. We need to teach them why that happened and how is the normal procedure to get out of those situations without aggressivity or other things. But let the things happen. Don't coach them so much.
This is a good point. But where do you need to coach? What is the coach's job in this process? How do you see it?
Well, create the environment for them to be happy with the things they are doing. So I think when you are coaching young kids, the first goal should be that the kid leaves the training happy and is willing to come as fast as the time allows them to the next training. So that should be the first aim. And once you are speaking about more technical stuff, I think accompany them. Don't coach them so much. I don't like to see 12 years old or 9 years old coaches giving a lot of instructions to the players, guiding them in everything they do and telling them what they need to do, why they need to do. Do you really think a 9 years old kid understands the game and all the variation that the coach is drawing in the blackboard? I think not. The only thing is thinking is about, I want to score that goal I see on TV. I want to do this trick I saw Cristiano Ronaldo doing. This is the things is inside a kid, and you just need to accompany them and guide them in a way you are not interrupting to this nature of this game.
Yeah, come on, Luis, you're making me feel bad now, because are you saying that I'm doing something wrong with the kids when I'm twisting their ankle or pushing them their balance a little bit lower, or saying them that you have to lower your knees a little bit, or you have to turn sideways when you get the ball, and you have to look at the pitch when you have the ball and things like that?
No, actually, I think that's the part of guiding them, that you want to give them tools to improve in this thing, but without forgetting that the first thing is that they need to enjoy. So imagine the full time of your training is all about these corrections. Do you think the player will be enjoying the training if you are giving such a lot of information every day, every single practice? I think not even the professional players will enjoy to play under those conditions. So we need to find the balance about those things. Of course, if they are 12 years old, I do believe that some technical aspects could be included in their training, but we need to find a way not trying to be pro coaches with 12 years old kids. That's the main point, I think.
And what about the game intelligence? That if I talk with my 8-year-olds, that you have to be in the right position, or you have to watch your other teammates to be in the right position, or you have to do things with the ball that you are playing safe, or you are being more successful in the pitch. Is it all for nothing, or how do you see that?
I do believe that you can coach them about how to play the game, but you don't want to make them play the way you see the game. I don't know if I'm making myself understandable. That, as I told you before, balance is the key. But I really like when they are kids and you don't guide them so much. You just let the things happen, and through games in the trainings or through feedback, you can find the best tool for it, but you try to guide them into this process. So the filming actually is very good, because everyone likes to see themselves in a picture or in a video, so you can coach in small portions these aspects you are telling me. What I don't like is when I see that I don't know how long is a game in the kids you are coaching, but if let's see
20 minutes.
20 minutes. So if you are 19 minutes giving instructions and feedback and instructions and feedback, I think you are not helping them at all. You are just putting a lot of information that they cannot understand. So perhaps it's important things you are saying, like, yes, you need to realize about the spaces around you, your teammates, and these things, but not overloading them and not taking the most important part, that is the way they enjoy to play that game. So I don't like, for example, when you cut the freedom of a player at those ages. Like, no, like, don't try to do these tricks, or don't overdo tricks. Instead of play more collectively, I think we need to give them a little bit of more freedom. But I know you are doing good stuff with them, so don't take me wrong.
Yeah. As a coach, I recognize this more so often that we, for example, if we as a KuPS we play like being teams from southern Finland, Kappa or HJK or something, some other teams. So it's really hard to just let the kids play, because of course you as a coach want to win matches.
Do you think it's the most important to win matches at those ages?
Yeah, but I know in my head I know that it's not most important. But when you are caught up in the situation, that happens to, I think, the most of Finnish coaches, that they're caught up in the situation, and at the moment nothing is more important than your team beating Southern Finland team or something else.
But that destroy for example, think about what these coaches will do in order to win more games. Most likely, they will choose the stronger players, the more tallest players, I don't know, perhaps the more physical players, because when you are in a young age, physical difference can be very determinant for the result. So with these teams choosing this profile of players, you are wasting even more than a half of the talent you can have in the future, because players with technical skills, with game understanding, won't be never in the front page, would be always as a reserves or in smaller clubs when they cannot shine. So that's why you cannot look to the result when you are coaching young players. I think you need to be able to discover the way to make them better athletes, make them better in football without watching the result. And sometimes it's not even coach's fault, it's more the club that is asking those coaches to win. And when they are telling you every year, okay, you will promote to more advanced team if you win that much games, of course you would like to win more games because you want to be as top as possible, but this is a complex thing.
Yeah, and I think this little bit touches also that competitiveness in that sense that I think I've learned from the material I've read that the kids are seeing competitiveness differently than adults. So it's a matter of, are you competing based on rules of adults or based on rules of kids? And if you put the kids play in the adult way of compete in the game, that's maybe the problem we have here. I don't know if it's a problem in other countries also, but we are playing kids games and we are trying to win based on adults' way of using competitiveness.
I totally agree with what you said, and perhaps it's a question that we should ask ourselves. And actually, that would be also a beautiful question to ask the kids what they understand about this term, because perhaps it could be totally different what we are trying to teach them.
Absolutely. I once asked from the players age of 8, what means to be brave? And it was really funny and very educating empirical study that I did, because nobody told the same thing that I was thinking as an adult. What means to be brave?
I do believe that, and sometimes we forget that kids can also teach us many things, and that's why I tell that it's very important to let them do things so we can learn from those things and find a way to help them at the best way.
I think the summarizing a little bit, Luis, if you could give the Finnish coaches that, let's say they are coaching teams, the under 14 to under 17 or 18, meaning B here in Finland, and they are trying to push and develop those players to be competitive enough to go to Europe or to the next phase to compete to win the place in Veikkaus liiga, maybe even in KuPS. What's the 3 main key points for that kind of coaches when they are doing their daily trainings and developing their players on daily play basis? 3 most important things to keep in mind on that kind of environment. Do you have any hints in your point of view? What's important?
I will try to answer about what is important, because as much as try to think about 3 really key factors, I cannot find it. But I think at those ages that, as you say, they are ages when a player is pretty close to make it or not to make it. So we need to, first of all, find, because when you are working in a team, the easiest way to break through, or the ultimate goal, is to make it in the same club where you are practicing. So watch what the top team in your club is doing, speak with the coaches, perhaps can give you a lot of solutions about how to prepare them better, because it will be a day when that player will be invited to train with those pro players. And if the difference is huge, they are not going to make it. And the difference can be found in the tempo of the trainings. It can be found in the structure of the trainings. It can be found in the physical training of those players. So everything should be correlated with the team that is over you. And also, I think you need to start in these ages. You need to start make the players understand that they need to be ready to make some sacrifices. Because think about these ages when all your friends at school. Perhaps they will be going for the parties, or they will be going night by the first time, taking the first beer or whatever. So those are things you cannot add to your daily program. If you want to succeed, you need to be far from those things, and sometimes it's hard, as well as having long summers and vacation periods. I remember that when I was young and I was playing in a good academy in Portugal, I didn't have any summer. My friends were at the beach every day, but I was training with my team because pre-season was starting at the middle of the summer. So those sacrifices is the sacrifices players need to do, as well as what I'm eating, how I'm taking care of my recovery. They do not understand that they are 17 years old, so the body can achieve with a lot of things. You can eat bad and perform well, but what you are not thinking is that if suddenly you became professional, what you do at those ages is important to make you succeed longer and to be more adjusted to the environment you are going to face.
Yes. How do you see, if you compare junior players, for example, here in Finland or Russia or in Spain, what kind of differences you see? I think our listeners would be really interested in learning and in you describing the differences. How do you see like Southern Europe players compared to our Northern players?
I think I need to explain this right so nobody gets wrong. It's just the difficultness to be full professional in a country such as Spain, where there is so many people and sport as football is so big that, as I told you before, only 1 out of 1 million kids will make it. So sometimes I feel that some kids, they just arrive to pro level in Finland because they are talented or a little bit more talented than the rest, not because they gave the best out of them during that process. And the best out of them is not only inside the pitch, it's all these things I'm telling you that goes apart, like healthy lifestyle and these kind of sacrifices. When you ask a player in Barcelona or in big clubs how you make it through, you will see that they are really disciplined since they are very young. It's good and bad. Bad because it makes really professional all the development process since very early stages, but it's also the way to make it, to be doing a little bit more than your colleague, trying to be a little bit more professional than your colleague, taking coaches' advices more seriously, investigating, I don't know. And then you need to have luck, because you can be as much professional and good as you can, but you also need luck and be in the right moment under the right eyes. So that's what I see in countries with such a big population as Spain, and with football as big sport as is in Spain.
And do you see that in Finland we have what's our like advantage to compare to players from highly competitive culture like in Spain?
Sorry, you ask if we have advantages?
Yes. Do you see that our Finnish players, we have some kind of advantage in competing, for example, against players that come from so highly competitive culture?
Yeah, I think, well, I'm in love with Finland, and apart from the difference I'm telling, I really like Finnish football and been so glad to work for it. And they do have advantage, because think about, you have made your first professional appearance, then will come most likely your first professional contract. And if you can be regular at young age, you are suddenly moving in a professional world. And let's say one good season could make you break through in another country, and your reality will change incredibly, because we know the resources big leagues has, and we know the money perhaps around football in another countries. So it's a huge advantage perhaps to be able to be in professional level with not that much sacrifices as in another countries, because suddenly you are in the same environment as another kid who has been fighting and stressing himself to arrive to the same position where you are at the moment.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know that from coaching world, you're in love with physical conditioning and injury prevention. So are you ready to move in that world or that part of the football world? Or do you have anything else to add to this, our earlier discussion?
No, I think I do really appreciate your question as well as Peteri's questions, because they bring a lot of good topics to this conversation. So I think I'm ready to move to the second chapter.
3. jakso Luissin kanssa päättyy tähän. 4. jaksossa keskustellaan Luissin kanssa vammojen ennaltaehkäisystä ja fyysisen harjoittelun osallisuudesta siinä. Jakso julkaistaan mahdollisimman pian.